Good morning, good morning, good morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name is QuianaDenae Perkins, and I am hailing you today from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I am excited to welcome you to the VUU today, as I refer to it, or the VUU. And I just am really excited about this topic, not because it's an exciting topic, but because it's one that we at the Church of the Larger Fellowship live in, thrive in, support and love and push towards. And so it's something that's dear to my heart, which is why I was asked to be a co-host. Also because I'm funny, and just as a sidebar. And so this is a tremendous opportunity to talk about the work of the larger Church of the Fellowship, prison ministry, and abolition. We are going to get started by introducing ourselves as co-host, tell you a little bit about where we are just so that we can get folks in the room and settled. And then we're going to deep dive into a conversation that could lead us anywhere, but I'm just excited to be on the journey. And guess whose hand I get to hold? I get to hold Aisha Hauser's hand on my journey.
QuianaDenae, I just adore you. I adore everyone. Not everyone. I mean, some people I don't adore, but I mean here on the VUU, I adore everyone. I'm Aisha Hauser, and I'm in Seattle, Washington, and it is 9 a.m. here, Pacific time. Which is better than 8 a.m., which is what it used to be when I was bright and early here on the VUU, and it's starting to rain. My internet is terrible this morning. I don't know why, so hopefully it'll work for the entire episode, because this is a topic definitely near and dear to all our hearts. And I'm very excited to have our prison ministry team here today. Yay. So if I disappear, it's my internet, not because I don't want to be here, because I love you all. Dawn Fortune, the place where I grew up.
That's right.
Girl, I'm a Jersey woman.
New Jersey. And it is Jersey Shore weather this week. It is in the 80s all week. Yeah, I finally gave in and turned on the AC yesterday, and yeah, it's beautiful. It's sunny and in the 80s, and I am, as you know, just 15 minutes out of Atlantic City with all of the bad fashion and poor life choices you could hope to see in one place. But things here are good. The flower report, because we don't have Michael here, the irises have come and gone. My peonies are about ready to start, and the rhododendrons are doing their thing. So, and that's about all of the things that I know the names of that are outside. The other things are green and pretty. So that's it. I'm going to hand it off to Tanner, who keeps us all in order and lets us know who's saying what on the interwebs to us.
Thanks, Dawn. I'm Tanner Linden. I am the tech person for the VUU. So please drop your comments, your questions, whatever is on your heart and mind in the chat on YouTube, and I will happily bring it over to our hosts and guests to see. So if you have specific questions or feedback or just things come up for you as you're watching the show, please make sure you let us know so we can get them in front of our hosts and guests. So please let us know if you have any questions, if you need any technical help, I'm here, and I will pass it back to QuianaDenae to introduce our guests.
Yes, I did not tell you all about the weather here in Michigan. It is, what's happening is it's absolutely beautiful when I'm sitting right here. And then if I walk to the window or try to leave my house to do anything, the weather becomes horrible. So like literally yesterday, I was like, I'm gonna wait till 5:30 to go for a walk, and then it started raining. It's conspiratory weather, so that's what's going on here. I want to invite folks to use the chat to engage us, to talk with us. And the other piece I wanted to share that I thought was really important is if there is things in the UU world that are happening, please put those in the chat and let us know. We have some knowings, but we're only 3 folks, so we need your help to get the biggest. Y'all are over here, not here, so sorry. So we need your help to know all the good things that are happening in UU landscape, in the scape of UU. So let's get started by introducing this amazing staff team who runs what I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, fam, y'all can correct me, the largest UU church. I'm going to start with our friend Beth, and then Beth, you can toss it however you'd like to. Thank you, Beth.
Thanks. I'm Beth Murray. I'm the administrator for the prison ministry program. Right now I'm in the Boston office. decorative white brick behind me and lots of sun. And I'll toss it over to Sir Lebert.
Hi, so I'm Sir Rivera Jr., and I just started a position as prison ministry manager. I'm here in Akron, Ohio, and we're just kind of getting into our parks season and concerts outside and things like that. So I'm really excited for that. Thankfully, our city has a lot of stuff to do that isn't indoors. That's good. And I will pass it to Smith, who's one of our pastoral learning fellows.
Hi there, I'm Althea. I'm in just south of Boston, and it's beautiful out, absolutely gorgeous. It's one of those great New England days that you just want to be outside and running. And I am a learning fellow with pastoral care in the prison ministry program. And I don't know who to pass it to.
We can pass it back to me. I guess one of the questions that you all had, which I think is going to be great for our community to hear the answer on, is what is Church of the Larger Fellowship's prison ministry? I'm not sure who wants to answer because I think many of you could. So let's start there. Tell us more about the prison ministry that you all get to be a part of.
So I could take that to start. So Church of Larger Fellowship, and I was really happy. I'm just getting these numbers. I'm a big numbers person. We have 2,653 members nationwide, worldwide, and 1,293 of those members are incarcerated. And our specific ministry for incarcerated folks is called the Worthy Now Prison Ministry. And the name comes from this belief and truth that all of us are worthy right now, wherever we are. As our principle says, the worth and dignity of each person. So the ways that they engage with us, they usually find out about us through word of mouth. They get an issue of Quest. They get our prison ministry, like our specific publication. We send them copies of UU World, and they're also able to take the new UU class. And we also have kind of programs that we offer them, such as like world religion classes. We have a large pen pal program, which really is one of the main ways that we kind of engage with the rest of the UU world. So that's kind of the overview of what we do. I could go a little further yet. I don't want to get too detail specific. And Beth, maybe do you want to? Okay.
Let me jump in. So we get lots and lots of inquiries. People who found out, like Sir said, by word of mouth. Some people find out about us because a piece of mail was left on the floor. And so many people are terribly isolated in prison facilities. And it's clear that our ministry is an opportunity for our incarcerated UUs to receive mail, to be in touch with people. So starting with an initial inquiry, we mail people all kinds of information, not only about the Church of the Larger Fellowship, but about Unitarian Universalism in particular. The inquiry packet includes a member application. So after they've read all about us, they can, if they feel compelled, they can then fill out a member application, and that's what activates the person being added into our database. And once they're in our database, the resources begin. We do offer the opportunity, to, like Sir said, to take an introduction to Unitarian Universalism. And that course in particular is a prerequisite to taking future courses. And also it is a prerequisite to receiving a pen pal, which is probably the most sought after relationship in our ministry. So of the 1,200 plus members that we have, incarcerated UUs. Only about 400 of them have pen pals, and that is for a couple of reasons. Some people choose not to take the new UU course, and that's totally fine. They still receive publications and resources. And other people have indeed taken the new UU course, but we have a huge, huge waiting list of looking for free world UU pen pals that would be willing to write.
Can you say a little bit about, I think one of the things that was, which I mean, why wouldn't it be this way, but surprised me, is all these courses are through snail mail. So I just want to be clear, no one's on Zoom who's incarcerated. No, they're not getting personal visits. They're taking courses, the new UU is the first one, and then even subsequent courses all through snail mail. And
Correct.
So it's dedication and a desire to be part of a liberal religion. And can someone speak to what you have noticed anecdotally that draws incarcerated UUs, and what is it about reading our publications or UU World or even Quest that attracts folks who are incarcerated?
Yeah, so I feel like you're asking two questions, or a comment and a question. So first, regarding the mailings that we offer a course every year. We give people a choice of 3 courses and they can register. And we also offer reading packets where there is no prerequisite at all. So I just sent out 3 different reading packets. There were probably close to 150 people registered for 3 different reading packets. We cannot send the reading packets all at once. So the reading packets are a book that we've received permission to type up in small print so we can get as much text on a page as possible. We have to divide it up because facilities have restrictions on how many pages can be in an envelope. Some facilities, I just got a reading packet that bounced back. Why? Because it was double-sided. So what do? We reprint it. We send it single-sided. It bounced back again. Why? Because I had exceeded the number of pages. And so it is a constant battle, is what I choose to call it, to find ways to get our materials to our UUs who are incarcerated. So
Beth, I want to.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I wanted to bring Alethea into the conversation, and if I pronounced your name wrong, I do apologize. I wanted to ask, what is the role of pastoral care? I think so often we think of pastoral care looking like a very particular thing, like the minister bringing casserole. And I have a broader definition, which is community care. Community needs need a community response. So I'm wondering how pastoral, what that looks like in a caged context, and how we offer that, and how you're able to do the work that you do, Miss Alethea.
Thank you. I'm going to say it's Althea, if that's okay.
Sal, thank you. Thank you.
And pastoral care to our incarcerated members is very, very challenging. The people who we see in pastoral care are people who fall off the pen pal list, that have been waiting for a long time, but really have a need to be in connection with someone. If you know about being incarcerated, you know about phone calls. It's not easy to get a phone call. It's not easy to make a phone call. So folks are really isolated. And then we also tend on pastoral care to get the marginalized of the marginalized. People who are going through, who have been in solitary confinement for a long time. People who are questioning gender identity. People who have a history of crimes that people don't like to talk about. They're the folks who write to us. And essentially, I walk the line between becoming a pen pal and doing pastoral care. These are folks who are just hanging on by a thread. So I write to them, and we write back to each other. and I hear, and they ask me things about how do you find a therapist? I feel so alone. There are things I need to talk about. They talk about the crimes that they've done in the past. My focus is always with them is, where's the divine in this? What are they seeking? How are they meeting their need to be in touch with the divine, to talk to the divine and not be isolated? And those are the conversations that we tend to have. Because it's snail mail, our conversations go over months. I'll mail, and maybe a month later, a month and a half, I'll get a response. It's not ever clear that what I send to them actually hits the mark. It's because sometimes things are not returned. I get second emails, second letters saying, why didn't you respond? When I know I've had to respond, but we're vulnerable to postal service. So it reminds me of the kid's poem. I shot an arrow into the air, it fell to earth. I knew not where. Sometimes it just feels like that. But when you connect, there is nothing better. When you connect to someone who is suffering and they really feel like you're with them and that you can show them the way to whatever their higher power, their divine is, it really works. I mean, it makes a difference to you and to them. And I've had privileges of talking to folks who have been who finally are free worlders now. And they really, really want to continue that connection because that connection was a lifeline for them.
I have a question, and I know that there have got to be, like, each institution has to have its own weird rules, and I'm sure federal facilities are different than state facilities, are different than local facilities, all that stuff. But I know that it's pretty common, if not universal, that inmate mail is read, ingoing and outgoing. I'm wondering, like, is there a way that an inmate knows that they're not going to be re-prosecuted or prosecuted anew for something they talk about that they've done in their past, that they're trying to talk with their pastor, their pastoral care provider? Like, that just hit me. Like, if you, like Altheus, you said that they talk about things that they've done in the past, and I'm thinking they had to write that down. And going through the guards, I can only think, guards being guards, that they might be inclined to say, look, this person just confessed to X, Y, and Z. Let's do them some institutional harm. I mean, how do you even manage that?
I mean, is that for me?
Yeah, for whoever can answer it. I mean, I don't even know. I'm just, yeah.
Well, two things really quickly. One is that you don't get convicted of the same crime again. So,
right, I know that.
And the arbitrariness of the prison industrial complex is unpredictable. Guards don't need a letter to be arbitrary. It's an arbitrary system that's not designed to be helpful. It was designed to be punishing and brutal at times. And so some of the things that you write about, they say, I don't care what happens to me. I want you to know. So they know that this is a risk. But sometimes they say it's a risk, and they're willing to take that risk to be in connection, in relationship with the person who is writing to them.
And I think it is really important to acknowledge the level of surveillance and control that the facilities are trying to impose on the people there. While it's probably unlikely for them to be re-prosecuted, we have seen and do have members who are facing essentially religious persecution within their facility. We have some UU chaplains. Yeah, we have to remember that not every chaplain in the facility is UU, and actually very few of them are. And we have some who are completely unsupportive of a religion that accepts people of different genders, of different identities, and sometimes that is used to put pressure on them. I think that there is definitely there's a movement among the facilities to increase that control. I did notice questions in the chat, a facility that is starting to prohibit real actual books. There's a company called Text Behind that's starting to be used in the South that actually eliminates any personal mails sent between prisoners and anyone on the outside. So essentially you have to sign up for a service. If you are, say, writing a family member, you would have to sign up for a service called Text Behind, get an app, scan in your letter, that goes to the facility, who then issues it to the incarcerated person. So just another layer, another barrier for communication and connection, and ultimately another way to control the incarcerated people. And of course, they bill it to organizations like us as this is a compassionate service and it'll save you money, and which is not true, by the way. It's more expensive for us. It's more of a problem. Yet they bill it to the facilities. They tell them the truth that this is a way to control contraband, and we all know the historical terminology and where the word contraband even comes from slavery.
What if we don't know, sir? Can you please educate us? Because I actually don't know, and I'm willing to admit that with humility. I don't know where the word contraband comes from.
Contraband, the earliest that it was used, it included quote unquote human cargo. It included slaves, enslaved people, I should say. And so when the Union started to take in enslaved people who were fleeing, when they kept them in the camps, they essentially called them all contraband. They were contraband camps.
Thank you for that moment of education, because so often we use language around prison and abolition that we don't know, that we don't understand, that we don't have the history of. So to lean into abolition a little bit, folks don't understand that the prison industrial complex is an extension of chattel slavery, right? So most folks, because they don't understand that connection, don't understand when they see, I'll just back up a tiny bit. When you see the badge of a sheriff or a police officer, those are almost exactly look like the badges of slave catchers, right? And so when we don't understand where those words and that history comes from, we can't connect it to why we would want to be free. But if these are systems that were created to be a different form of slavery and we've ended slavery, why would we continue the other forms of oppression that help mimic slavery? I hope I'm making sense to somebody somewhere. But what I'm saying, we need to understand the root of words, and we need to understand how language is being used. So let's talk a little bit about the abolition side of this, because although I believe the work of the Church of the Larger Fellowship is to be a soothing balm to those who are in that system, it's not a system that CLF wants to maintain. It's not a system that you all are like, let this go on forever. Because sir, if you didn't have a job next year because prisons were, you're gone, you'd be okay, right? You'd be like, woo! So how do we lean into the abolition part of this? How do we lean into the education part of this? The work that you're doing is absolutely critical and essential, but it's work that we hope goes away.
Absolutely. I think for me, abolition is essentially the grandmother of U.S. resistance movements. So from everyday resistance by enslaved people to marronage, to the Underground Railroad, which was called by some historians the history's most intricate network of conspiracy, that has been the kind of the genesis of our movements for labor, for suffrage, and it provided kind of the basis for even the identity of Unitarians and Universalists in our country. I think one of the things that has spoken to us as Unitarians and Universalists is that it's central to our theology. Our first principle, it affirms the worth and dignity of every person. That includes incarcerated folks. Our fourth principle calls for a free and responsible search for meaning. Maybe I'm too literalist, yet I take that free part seriously. Our sixth principle calls for justice for all. And then of course we have the eighth principle, which calls us to dismantle racism and all other oppressions. I think it, at its core, is a liberatory religion. I think that further, as we are seeking to understand how we express the worth and dignity of every person, I think about Ruth Wilson Gilmore's quote about what abolition is. She says, abolition seeks to undo the way of thinking and doing things that sees prison and punishment as solutions for all kinds of social, economic, political, behavioral, and interpersonal problems. So it's not simply decarceration, it's reorganizing the way we live our lives together in the world. That rehumanizes.
Sir, I know I'm a jump in talker. If we was in person, boy, my hands would be going.
Please.
Can you read that again? And because I want folks to understand that extreme distinction the person whose definition you provided made. Can you just read that again for us? Let that sit in our hearts.
So Ruth Wilson Gilmore, Critical Resistance, she says, abolition seeks to undo the way of thinking and doing things that sees prison and punishment as solutions for all kinds of social, economic, political, behavioral, and interpersonal problems. Although it's not simply decarceration, not simply letting all folks out into the street, out of the prisons. It is reorganizing the way we live our lives together in the world. I think that to kind of pick out one thing in the earlier quote, solutions for all kinds of social, economic, political, behavioral, and interpersonal problems. So the US has a problem. As a corporation designed to extract labor and resources and land, it has an addiction to free labor. That is a social and economic problem that the US has. The carceral system is the solution to that problem. And the solution to so many other problems of mass neglect, of underdevelopment. And I think that's the core of what her and other abolitionist philosophers are getting at, that really it's about reorganizing our way of life and how we understand the worth of people and how to address these issues that will always be common to our species.
Well, and to your point, I mean, what's happening now is, I guess fast food restaurants are having trouble finding people to work. And it's because people are making more on either unemployment or whatever public assistance, which the sick part of the sickness that the United States has is I could see politicians saying, well, then we need to not give that assistance, because just to your point, this country is built on violent extractive capitalism. It has not changed that. And my thing is, in terms of going toward abolition and having abolition, is we need universal basic income and universal health care. Because when folks are free, to quote Martin Luther King when he talked about to the reporter, when he said, you know, when enslaved people were set free or let free, there was no, they weren't given lands, they weren't given resources, so they were free to hunger and free to, you know, to suffer. And so there needs to be, exactly to your point, a restructuring of how we care for each other. And this is the United States, because the United States is the one that has this mass incarceration problem more than any other developed nation on the planet. And so we need to be clear about that. These problems that we're having here in a developed nation doesn't exist anywhere else. in this way that isn't a dictatorship and a fascist government. So we have it in us to fix it. We have to want to fix it. We have to stop with this greedy, extractive. I'm in Seattle. Demon fucking Bezos is building a $500 million fucking yacht, and this that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it's related because it's about this unchecked greed, and this is why we have a carceral system. And one of the things that was new to me to learn is how many goods are made in prisons, how many things are being, again, it's a replacement of slavery. So it's a lot of parts that need to be addressed.
Can I just say one thing? Remember when slaves were freed, the people who were still called slaves were people who were in prison. I mean, this is not a disconnected history. When slavery was done in, it was done in for everybody except people who had criminal record or who were arbitrarily called incarcerated or jailed and so what happened is that incarcerated, not free tradition that started way back then exists even to today.
Absolutely. And I think about we have toilet paper, park benches, even, which is completely ghoulish, prison guard uniforms and police uniforms are made by incarcerated people. So that's a direct cycle. And I think that one of the things about understanding why it's so important to reorganize our way of living together is because as long as we have a carceral system to address problems of abandonment, neglect, and capitalism, and to continue settler colonialism here and the control of populations, as long as we have that carceral system, everyone can be criminalized and incarcerated. And it's a thing that will continue to eat itself, it will continue to eat all of us. It's just the truth.
One of the things that some of the work that I do in the world, just so that y'all know, I work pretty closely with Blue, Black Lives, Unitarian Universalists, and some of the first work, not the first work, but some of the first work we did was a program called Babies and Bailouts. You might see it again later sometime this year. But the idea, what happened for me, where abolition hit my womb, and I use that word very intentionally. We were at a conference, we were all together, and we were listening to this phone call of this woman. And she was calling us from prison. We're all in this auditorium together, and hearing that moment on the phone where the phone says, "You have one more minute." You could hear this audible gasp in the auditorium. And so moments after that, the idea of Babies and Bailouts was born, an idea to educate, an idea to raise money, because nobody should give birth shackled. If you have ever given birth, it is not a fun experience, and you should not have to give it shackled in a room with two people who are disinvested in your entire well-being and the well-being of your child. I'm not going to talk in depth about what it means to give birth in prison and what it means to try to parent from prison. That's a whole separate 3 shows. But I offer that to say, this work has hit me in a very vulnerable place. I'm going to share something that most people don't know, and I hope my family's okay with this. My mother and my sister have both been incarcerated, and so I've visited in jails. I've done that work. I've sent money. I've sent letters knowing they weren't going to get read. I had an opportunity to do abolition work 2 weeks ago, or a couple weeks ago, with the Blueberries, which are the Blues youth program. And the way that we talked about it, even with kindergartners or first graders, wasn't this very heady conversation, which we in UU, we love head stuff, right? We love head stuff, but we forget hands and hearts sometimes. And so I said to the kids, what would happen if you were at school and somebody accidentally took your pencil? They said, well, I would ask for it back. And I said, what things would need to happen for you to feel restored to whole? What restorative things would need to be in place? And these kids were like, well, I would let them apologize, or maybe we would share a pencil. Maybe I would ask them if they needed the pencil for something that I didn't need it for. Maybe we could share. They had all of these solutions, and they understood what it meant to be brought back whole. They didn't need the principal. They didn't need the teacher to intervene. they were willing to have a conversation with another person they were in relationship with to restore the relationship. And so I've really been thinking about how do we start having those abolition conversation and behavior changes with kids as young as 6 years old. If a 6-year-old can get the concept that the healing and the repair happens between two people, we, I think as adults, we've grasped this other concept, but I think that there's room to grasp another concept. We are literally hanging on the monkey bars, ready to grab a new bar, and we don't have to grab the prison bar. We don't have to grab the prison industrial complex bar. We can grab the restoring our communities, the whole bar. We can grab the knowing who your neighbors are. We can grab the, putting food in the community box. We can grab other things besides prisons. What are some of the, so I just listed some that I just made up as I was talking. What are some other ways folks can engage in restorative practices or shift their behavior away from punitive into meaningful, sustainable relationship? Anybody can answer.
I'm really glad you mentioned the connection to kind of the other areas in your own life, especially having to, and I think that one of the things that's really touching to me and was really moving for me was reading and understanding the work of Miriam Kaba, who started her abolition journey in work for domestic violence. And understanding that this was so cyclical that the only way to address these problems is to understand that they need to be addressed at the root. So the root of policing, as you pointed out, babies and bailouts. How do we really start to address the things that trap people in these systems before it happens? And I think a lot of that, for us as UUs in an active spaces, I would just end in, the predominantly white, liberal, progressive spaces. One of the issues I think is a compartmentalizing of causes. And it's a tendency to keep all of these things separate, which colonialism really pushes, it really helps. So there's this thing that, well, I'm going to do a food ministry, Tuesday's Black Lives Matter rally, Wednesday night is yoga, and Friday I'm making phone calls for like a straight white male Democratic candidate who rallies against defund the police. And there's no understanding of how are these things connected? I think we have to recenter abolition because it is this core understanding of what is our system's purpose and what are some of the quickest ways and most direct ways that we can break it down.
That's why I say when I do, the buzzwords right now are DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. And there are Black and brown people included in some really oppressive and problematic systems. I mean, for reasons that they need to survive. So my goal is liberation. Like our goal is abolition, it's liberation. It can't just be inclusion and diversity. Equity, sure, but I think there's, as you said, I loved that breakdown of the week. Like we need to do that as a newsletter column or something. Like let's connect the dots. And I love yoga on Wednesdays. It's just, and then supporting candidates who just are not at all connected to supporting what it is that, these marches you go to. So I think that's been one of the invitations for Unitarian Universalists is like connect the dots. Don't just be a UU to make yourself feel better because the world is shit. Like what does it mean to embody who we are as UUs? Like, don't argue about critical race theory. Don't argue about the words white supremacy. If you want to be Unitarian Universalist and affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, well, then we're not doing that right now. We have a death culture in this country, and it includes the carceral system and people not being valued because money is valued more than people. And so connecting those dots is so crucial, and because we can fix it. We have to expand our imaginations. We can. To me, it is not, nothing's impossible. It's weird because I think in the United States, especially, there's no limit to the imagination of destruction, but somehow imagining community care and affirming each other and dismantling this carceral system is somehow unrealistic. And I'm like, but having all these nuclear weapons is realistic? Like, why is destruction realistic and care not realistic? So let's inspire people as a faith to know that community care is not only realistic, it's achievable. We have to stop, we have to reimagine, as you were just, I'm supporting what you're saying, sir, and appreciating all of everyone.
May I say just something quickly? Because I don't want to get lost the fact that the population that is increasing in prison are women. The women you were talking about mamas and babies. The population, women in prison has gone crazy. In the state, in Massachusetts, where I am now, they're talking about building trauma-informed prisons. What sense does that make? I mean, and we're going to spend $500 million and do that. I think it's important to talk about abolition. I think it's also really important to talk about decarceration. And I think that we can't continue to have this tidal wave of women. Women are in jail, not because they've been found guilty of something, but because they can't afford to get out of jail. So they're awaiting trial in jail. That's the nature of our prison system. So we see Black men getting killed all the time. And I have a son and I get triggered all the time. But as we talk about abolition, and we must, that has to be the conversation. But we have to also understand we can't take our eyes off of what's going on. And that somehow the tension between we have to do both here, not either or.
And I want to just, in terms of women being in prison, there's parents, there's that piece, but also understand the other connected system, y'all, is child welfare services. And so when we did babies and bailouts last year, we brought somebody to the table who that was their ministry and their expertise. Make no mistake, it is a connected system. I have jailed and imprisoned all of your Black men. Who is next up? All the Black women who had to take on the work, suffrage, and struggle of being parents to folks. Now we are incarcerating you, but now we are taking away your children and your right to access them, educate them, and support them. It is a connected system. It is an ongoing history. There is no period. There is no end mark. It started in 1619. And if you make any mistake that we have somehow put a period on it, you are sadly mistaken. Turn the page, my friends. There is a new chapter and it is ongoing. Make no mistake. When we take people's children away from them, whether it's through internment camps for Japanese citizens, whether it's schools for indigenous folks, or whether it's slavery for Black people who we've literally stolen from another physical piece of land, it is the same story, it is the same narrative. It has to take different forms because we get smarter, we thrive harder. So you have to change how I harm you because you changed how you survive. It is all connected, my friends, all connected. And it's not that I don't want to talk about women in prison, it's that it's so tender to me. I can't talk about it logically, rationally, or with just my head, because my heart and my hands start going. So just know that I'm with you, Ms. Smith. I'm cheering you on, and know that that's work. And if you think a woman deserves to give, I won't say woman because I'm trying to be gender unbiased. If you think someone deserves to give birth in prison, shackled, there is something fundamentally wrong with who you are in your spirit. I said it, I'm not taking it back. Nobody deserves that. Nobody deserves that. There is nothing I could have done on this planet that makes me worthy of having a child while shackled. Nothing. I can't think of a thing except shackling another human. Maybe. I'm gonna stop, y'all. Y'all done got me to preaching.
I cannot wait until you get ordained.
And let the church say amen.
You don't want me ordained because then I have to bite my tongue a lot more. Right now I'm unordained and free range, so I can act out. I don't got no rules, so you don't want this. You don't want me yeah. Anyway, friends, we're about 45 after the hour. let's bring us all back together a little bit. How do we move forward? How do we move forward knowing that prisons aren't going to be torn down tomorrow? How do we move forward to love the folks who are in those cages? How do we move forward to the folks who have been caged and need support to move forward in their lives? What is the work that we can do? And I want to be really clear, if there's resources, if there's book writing, I mean, if there's books you can, whatever resources we can collectively gather today between the audience and us, let's make that list loud and proud. Let's dig in our pockets, let's dig on our bookshelves, let's find a diaper exchange to give diapers to women. Let's find maybe a local milk bank for women whose children were born incarcerated, but now they are being raised somewhere else and need access to milk and other products. What are the ways we can combat the system if we can't get a hammer and go tear down the building right now?
Well, I definitely echo the passion. It's so hard for me to kind of stay within the intellectual space of UU, because the reality is, as some of our great artists said, there's a war going on outside no one is safe from. And we have to remember that it will, as you and Althea pointed out, it will spread to more people. And I think that to, you know, the reference books we want to read, George Jackson, Blood in My Eye, you know, he talks about how the people who place themselves above the rest of society through guile, fortuitous outcome of circumstance, sheer brutality, have developed two principal institutions to deal with any and all serious disobedience: the prison and institutionalized racism. I think for us as UUs, and I would just say as the Worthy Now program, I'm happy to follow the lead of our two new ministers, Rev Aisha and Chris, and moving us towards an abolition focus. I think some of the most exciting stuff that we are looking to do is expand the ways in which incarcerated folks in UU can engage with our ritual practices, what makes us UUs. This helps them to feel more connected. It helps them to get prepared for when they will be released. And I think more importantly, it allows them to be engaged, to kind of engage with their own humanization. I think one of the coolest things we're doing is inviting them to vote with us. So this year, for the first time, incarcerated members of CLF will actually be able to vote in the congregational meeting. This is really cool for me because, you know, when I think of what makes us UUs, it's like, it's voting, it's chalice lighting, it's things like study, social action, it's coffee hour. Like, those are our UU ritual practices. So to call back to chalice lighting, that's another thing that we want to incorporate more of is, you know, the incarcerated folks are, just like all of us, deeply poetic, deeply complex, deeply thoughtful. They send us beautiful writings. And we want to solicit more from them, from chalice lightings, benedictions, so that they can be included in our services and that we can start to build that community now with folks who are in the free world that we want to continue and build more of. One of the best ways that people can help out is through the Pen Pal program. And as Beth pointed out, we do have way more people who want pen pals than we have pen pals in the free world. So that's a great way to contribute to Worthy Now, and of course, kind of watch what we're doing. That's what I would say. I'd invite kind of others.
I just want to jump in. I cannot tell you how many letters I receive where an incarcerated UU explains that no one in their family writes to them, that they have been completely ostracized from their family. They have declared the Church of the Larger Fellowship as their family. And so when we send holiday messages or reading packets or quest, we are their family reaching out. And we are a lifeline to many, many people. And being a pen pal, you know, our small staff cannot care for nearly 1,300 people. We need help, and we need Free World Pen Pals to join us. This is such an important ministry. I just got a letter today of someone who a guard had mistreated him in some way, and he filed a grievance against the guard, knowing full well that he would be, this incarcerated UU would be punished. And indeed, he was punished. The guard urinated in, the guard urinated in his CPAP, and this person was put in isolation. None of his medications for high cholesterol, high blood pressure followed him. So he has diabetes. So he is not getting proper medical attention, and he knew that the guard would retaliate. And yet he, being the incarcerated UU, felt it was necessary to file a grievance for the actions that this guard. We need to be there.
My closing message or my energy is find a place that works for you. Find a way to engage this that works for you. I'm a full-time parent. I'm a full-time, a lot of things. But what works for me is to continue to change how I parent so that I'm not using punitive systems with my kids. We sit down. How have you been hurt? Tell me how you can be restored. Starting to change how I engage in conversation with my coworkers, changing how I treat my neighbors, because I need them. I need them to survive. When we start viewing the people in our world as connected bodies that I need to survive, and that then I can't have you incarcerated. If you are a part of the foundation of how I'm to thrive, I can't have you in a system that doesn't allow for that. We can't do both at the same time. And so I would say some of the things that you can do that are practical is getting to know your neighbors, getting to know the tools and systems in your community when people need help, whether that's mutual aid, whether that is a physical brick and mortar church of their faith or denominational choice. Those are really small, not tied to money things you can do. However, if you have some money, there's always an opportunity to give in mutual aid spaces. There's an opportunity to buy resources like diapers. You know what I mean? Until I did babies and bailouts, I didn't realize, okay, if I have a child while I'm incarcerated and my family has the capacity to take them on, we've been fighting in court. I didn't have time to have a baby shower and make a little cute diaper cake and get a bunch of diapers. But now grandma who's living on Social Security might need to take care of my child because that's the most appropriate adult in my situation. They don't have diaper money. They've been living off the 7+ in Social Security. So giving somebody a box of diapers can make a difference. So I put those in the chat, ways to give other resources that are practical and make sense. Picking up an extra box of diapers or wipes can make a difference. I don't know if you've ever had to buy powdered milk, but it's not cheap, boo. It is not cheap. Things like that can help. So I'm talking about moms, but other things you can do, just find a way, find your lane. Find your lane. And everyone's lane is not going to be at a protest. That may not be your lane, but find your lane and do the work. Do the work of dismantling systems. Make new systems, better systems. Please, please, please.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes, ma'am.
This is like personal PR and I'm embarrassed by it, but in UU World this week, this edition, in the center, the family edition, I wrote something about talking about mothers in prisons, and it might be a useful resource.
Yes, get it. Don't be ashamed of that, Miss Smith. Don't be ashamed. We're not letting shame live in this space with us. You should be proud of that. You're speaking up for the most vulnerable in our community, and that's who needed that voice. So no shame. Be proud of the work you've done, Miss Smith. Oh, Dr. Smith, somebody corrected me. Dr. Smith, thank you.
And Beth, can you just say out loud what you put in the chat about how to become a pen pal?
Yes, I can. So if you go to worthynow.org, first of all, you can read about the Worthy Now Prison Ministry, but in particular, there's a tab that's called Deepen and Connect. And that's where you can access information about our letter writing pen pal ministry. And we would love to have more writers.
Thank you.
And you can have more than one pen pal. So even if you already are a pen pal and you're thinking about another, just let me know.
Any folks have last words, Sir, Althea, QuianaDenae, Dawn, in our last 5 minutes?
You know,
I am most grateful for the work that you three are doing. And I now have an additional reading list and a couple of links to explore. So thank you.
nobody's free till everybody's free. Fannie Lou Hamer told us. And I think it's so important that we recognize that this system will continue to consume itself, and it'll continue to consume everyone here. It is very personal to all of us, all the people around us, that we end the carceral system, that we all get free together. It has to be that priority we wake up with, because it's our freedom. It's the freedom of our future, the freedom of everyone we know.
I just want to say thank you for giving voice, because the more we talk about it, the more we lift it up, the more possibilities for change. And this can't keep going on. This bridge cannot continue to be my back. I am way too old and way too tired.
Amen. Amen. QuianaDenae, you want to take us out? Thank you all so much.
The outro is simply this: we all have work to do to get all of us free. If you think you don't have work to do, then that is your work to find your work. And I can't echo enough that Black and Brown people cannot continue to be the back that the country is walking on for labor, for so many things. You cannot keep walking on our back and expect to get somewhere. And to echo what Sir said so much, if any of the people in my spider web of connection, of healing, of thriving are incarcerated, are caged, then I am not free. And so if we believe in the first principle through the eighth principle, then this is our work, and we lean into it with a heavy heart, but a ready heart. And so I implore you, as I say with my blueberries, if you have a chalice in your hand, your head, or your heart, use them now. Use them for the good of this community. Use them for the good of this continent, for this planet, and for the good of your brothers, sisters, and siblings. Ashe and amen, my friends.